to do karate somewhere over here, or martial arts, more taekwondo, and one of our student instructors was actually on the call. Just pretty
Really?
cool. Yeah.
Huh. Was his name Kenneth?
No, it was Naisha Kola.
That's legit.
Yeah, she was in one of the breakout rooms I was in at some point. So that was interesting. I didn't expect that.
Yeah. Okay, we're streaming right now, which is
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just saw that.
frightening, a little bit frightening, but I think your voice and our relationship has been such a unique one over the years, right?
Yeah, definitely. How are you doing? I haven't asked.
I'm doing okay, man. I studying computer science and humanities at San Jose State, but what's been more transformational for me over the past year is I've done some deep reading and writing on the science behind learning. So, like what learning takes, right? I could feature some of the books. One is Creating Significant Learning Experiences, I think. And this was all led by our professor, Jeff Anderson. Remember that dude?
Yep. Wait, he wrote that?
No, he didn't write that, but
Oh,
it's a book that he's read many times. And then this one, How Learning Works. There's a few other resources, but it's just been like, you ever been in a class and you ever like had a really good teacher and you're like, what makes that teacher so great? You know?
yes.
Like when you can move beyond the idea that they care, that they're funny, that they're interactive, that they seem to like really see you as a human being rather than just delivering content. There's just so much there, right?
Right.
And being able to learn the theoretical reasoning behind that and the frameworks, as well as the science of learning behind teaching and learning, because that really goes hand in hand. When we're learning, we're teaching ourselves something, right?
Yeah. Of course.
Has just been absolutely fun. I mean, you saw me exercising some of that today in our event, right?
Right.
How do we center the students? Sophia, the director of Science Learning Institute, we spent 4 hours brainstorming the agenda items for this event. It would have been much easier to be like, let's have some panelists and let's have them talk about their story, right?
Yeah.
But I think we're all experiencing some Zoom fatigue right now.
It was really nice. Yeah. Well planned. If we had a little more time, I think we could have got through everything.
Yeah, because we get to learn from the students, right?
Yeah, it was really nice. Like that's the cool part of community college. You have like everyone, which is cool.
Yeah. I cannot believe how fast you grew. I remember before you left
That's
for
right.
UC Santa Cruz, I ran into you again, and you were like
tiny.
You were like I can't even. It's not even in the. It was like this much, probably more than that.
I was tiny. Now I'm like 5'9", 5'8". So yeah, Fiddle was like basically my growth spurt time.
Yeah. Just really, really cool to see. I hope my brain can grow as much as you've grown.
I don't know about this part. I've grown physically.
No, I want you actually, this might be a good segue to share your screen if you want to pull up your website that you've made and just talk through the vision you've had for that.
Let's do it. Let me pull it up. Well, so like I've always been passionate about like whatever I do, and like whatever I want to do, I'm super passionate about it, and that's all I want to do. And kind of what started was like I started learning about, because you've already known I'm very into math and I'm very into CS, and I didn't know like what's the communion, what happens in between. And when I went to Santa Cruz, there's a lot of like an upper division. You've already seen this, right? There's a lot of theoretical courses in CS, right? It's a lot of math CS, or like the science behind it. And I was super into that. And it's called theoretical computer science. And I was like, algorithms, all this was really cool. And I started like looking into problems, and it started off really with this one problem the professor just said at the beginning. At the end of one of his lectures, he's like, have you done some kind of graph algorithms like
A little bit.
BFS, DFS. So he's like, try sorting an array with the topological sort. You know the topological sort, right?
Yep.
It's just the ordering. Try sorting an array like that. And I'm like, okay, cool, I'll try that. I tried it, and then there's an easy answer. Then I'm like, this is only n square. It's not fast enough. And then I just worked on it for 2 months, and I figured out an n log n, which is the first of its kind that I'm aware of. And right now I'm in the process of publishing that. And with that, that kind of like uplifted me and just like gave me confidence that maybe this is what I want to do. And I talked to some professors about it, and one particular person, Professor C. Seshadri, he's an absolute legend. He's like a Jeff Anderson in UC Santa Cruz, and it's not like he's not like Jeff Anderson in the sense that he has great teaching material and a full atmosphere. Rather, I think he just has extremely good understanding and can relate complex topics, complex topics very easily because he has such a clear-cut understanding of what it is. And that's what I'm speculating. So again, I was thinking about that. I'm like, what makes him such a good teacher? And yeah, and that's how it started. And then I just love sharing what I learned to people. And normally they're people who don't care because it's like no one really like. I have one friend who cares about theoretical computer science a lot, so I talked to him, and then I'm like, I want to write about this. I want to like properly like in this way I can encapsulate what I learn and actually have a place because like you learn in class and you get tested by tests, by homework and all. But when you learn something offline, there is no test unless you work on a problem or you write about it in some way. In some way you have to use it. So I'm like, okay, I don't work on all these problems, of course. So I'm just gonna write about it and that will kind of cement my own understanding and maybe someone will read it at some point. And that's what kind of started this blog. And I started off, yeah, the graph sort paper, which I was talking about. And then I kind of just like did some fun stuff that I liked. This was a cool one. I don't know if you've heard of reservoir sampling,
Yeah, I have.
where, yeah, you have probably. It's pretty popular, but it's interesting the entire idea behind the principle. And then I would kind of like do tests, write about the stuff, and have like you can see like just reservoir sampling. This was before, and so what we had our data, we sampled it, and it's still about the same distribution. So you see it works, and it was just like a nice place just to kind of like organize everything I do, and that's kind of what started the blog. And I will like whatever I want to like talk about, I'm just like putting it on here. Like if you want to see, let me show you something.
I love this blog, Balaram. Even though it's subtitled Blog Posts in Theoretical Computer Science, each of those
Mm-hmm.
posts I clicked through yesterday, and
Uh-huh.
it's actually your way of applying the theory towards not only like really thinking about what the theory is doing for you, right? Like literally you're applying that theory into your own life. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
that's right. Because like, um, that's the cool part about theoretical computer science actually is that it's theoretical, but it's actually real problems. It's just without the annoying part of coding it. Like you work in pseudocode, like you it's like you're working with because like you don't care about computation time. It's just matter of getting it right. The matter that it works theoretically, and then that's it. You're done. And like graph theory is the OP. Like, have you taken Patrick Morse's class in discrete math?
I've taken his differential equations. I love that
Differential,
guy.
okay. Because in discrete math, that's kind of what got me into it. Because he was talking about, so you know graph theory already, of course, because you probably have learned that. And there was this thing. So there's like vertices. Here's like this is like a social network. And there's like there's vertices and there's edges, and it's there's so many applications of it. Like I found this one really eye opening for myself. Like I was trying to like break down the applications of this, and it kind of like broke down in this way where there's traversal data as we have over here. Traversal that like maps. That's a graph, or airlines. That's another graph. These are traversal data. Then there is relational data, which is like a social network where there is interaction between entities in the network. And then there's flow data, which is like inventory management and other things, or like even airline management can be flow data. So there's these like different types of data, and these can all be put into a graph. And then if you can just solve graph problems, you're solving these problems. And that's the cool part of graph. It's very, very real. At the same time, it's very, very difficult in a sense to solve, because if it just explodes. You can see this. Like if everyone had a few connections, it just explodes. And that's why it's like a combinatorial, it's called combinatorial explosion. It's just massive. It's like n choose 2 is the number of edges, and it's a big number, which is why solving problems in graph theory is so difficult, because it takes so much time. It's a very good subject. I find it's a really nice subject to talk about, because there's a lot of scope in it. There's a lot of places where you can go, and that's what kind of started off. And yeah, here I'm just like giving some examples. And with graph theory, I want to go into graph theory like as like in a PhD program and study this and actually go in, like do this for my life, hopefully. So that's the plan. And just like these different like this passion that I have, as you can already tell. I think that's what I just wanted to let go and just wanted to put somewhere, just keep a record of it almost, and have it down in the blog. That's kind of what started it off. And that was the vision
Super.
behind it. Yeah.
It's super, super smart, Balaram. It's so funny because about 6 months ago, I also came upon this idea, right? We learn these really fascinating things in class, and so much of it stays in our Google Drive, our
Yeah.
Notion, or our physical notes. And then it's so easy to just recycle that or trash that. But what a waste.
Right. There's no presentation of it in any way.
Yeah, like this, like just think about how much more robust is than a resume. You know, how much more robust is compared to a CV or even a LinkedIn page, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's like you're just presenting your work straight up. And more than that, I feel like you're also absorbing the work and you're connecting back with what you learn, even though you like of course you don't want to connect back to something you just hated to learn, like differential equations. I absolutely hate it. I'm never gonna write something about that. But like writing things about things you like, and like you'd probably write about what you like, I write about what I like, and then someone else might find half of it fun, half of it interesting. So you never know. So
I would like to make a
yeah, I'm
bet.
talking a lot. You should.
No, 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 that's okay. No, it's all good. It's also a little bit laggy, so it's hard to gauge if there's actually pause.
Oh,
But
sorry. Yeah, my I think it should be fine now, right?
that's all good. Yeah, yeah, no, it's good now. It's good now.
Okay,
Just it comes
cool.
and goes. But what I was gonna say, Balaram, is I would imagine ever since you started this thing, you actually look at information, whether it's in lecture, whether it's online, whether it's through whatever media, differently,
Hmm.
right? Because you can actually think about how you whatever is being presented to you, how you can turn that into generating something of your own. You're making literally the transition from being a consumer to a generator, and that's
Yeah, yeah.
a super powerful thing to enter, right?
Hmm.
Not
Yeah.
not
Also,
saying that not,
yeah. Go ahead.
not to say like you're trying to become like famous through this blog or like you're trying to
No.
drive a lot of traffic, but at least let's say you have some friends, me included, that want to read about what you thought about graph theory, you know? And
Yep.
what you wrote in your posts, I guarantee you actually is a lot better than the vast majority of Google searches I have on those key terms, right?
That's the plan. that's,
Yeah.
that's very encouraging to hear. Yeah.
And I also love in your welcome page, or maybe it was because you actually posted a research thing that you published. Maybe it was in the
Um,
conclusion of that.
was I think this one, right? I'm in the process of publishing, so
I
almost there.
remember I remember downloading a PDF. I don't think it was directly through this link.
Oh, okay. I think was it this maybe the first one.
Maybe, but in the conclusion somewhere, yeah, yeah, this one, that one, yep.
This
In
one.
the
Okay.
yep, that one. In the conclusion, you had said that this is something that you're really pursuing and you're passionate about, and you're saying that it would basically grant you the right to teach, right? Or maybe it wasn't somewhere else. Maybe it was your
I
about page. Maybe it was your about
maybe
page.
it was, yeah.
but
Maybe, yeah.
but
This
I'm
this was
glad that
just
we
for a
highlighted
class, just a research paper. I'm like, fine, I haven't written anything in a month. I'm just gonna publish it here.
it. But that is so cool that this is up and alive, and it's something you're working on. I want to do the same thing. So let's
Yeah,
help each other.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, we can totally collaborate on things, and like what you find interesting, what I find, we can find like the intersection. And one point that you mentioned, what was it? When you're consuming things, you think about it differently, and that's so true because I've been reading a lot of research papers, and when you read it, you always there's always some purpose, right? There's either like you want to learn something just randomly, or you're trying to get something from there to apply it to something else you're trying to do, or connect something. And like now, when I go into it, I'm looking like another purpose that I have right now is looking at what's important, and could I present this in some way that might, bring out the juice in the paper, and like give it out to someone, like let's say, who would read this, like an undergrad who probably doesn't care about the terminology, just caring about the effect, and kind of crossing that barrier and giving like a transition again, as you said. So that's like, and like a lot of the times, because since like I'm not going for traffic, as you said, and I really am not, and that just kind of changes the intention. Like first your intention is like, okay, your audience is like a student probably, but at the same time you want to help yourself, because that's not the goal to get more students to read, it's to help yourself. And that does really help myself in absorbing things, because then you get the crux of what's being said, what's there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so like how cool that it is you're doing this. And 6 months ago, I had a meeting with Jeff Anderson. Maybe 4 months ago, I had a meeting with Jeff Anderson. I was like, Jeff, everything that you have on Conquering College, which is all about the how, right? Staying motivated, SMART goals, weekly schedule, term schedule, making use of
Right.
lecture notes, help seeking systems. All of that is the how. But like, what if we can combine that with the what, which is you redefining the problem for yourself, in this case by category, right? Measuring theoretic probability theory, um, or and then the why. Like you can incorporate all of that into a singular blog post, and it really does allow you to transition from just finishing the class or just doing the assignments or just doing the assessments. In that paper, that almost 20, like 12 page long paper, at the end you're like thanking your professor for for guiding you on this stuff, right?
Oh
And that,
yeah, yeah. I think,
yeah,
yeah,
and
you're
that,
talking about this thing. I think
yeah,
so.
and that's what like that's what the teachers are there to do, but so many of us don't actually see it in that way because
Hmm.
we haven't even moved past the conversation of grades, you know
That's right.
so
Yeah.
so it's really, really beautiful to see you doing this.
And I think what the reason like you get into that mode of is because like right now I'm taking like I normally don't have that mode in my head. Like I normally go for the learning, and then I'm like, luckily for me, somehow like with just learning and absorbing, I somehow can pass tests. Like I'm very thankful for that, and it's not it's like it's not expected. It's not how it works. Like there's a lot of like many people have to do work to get to that point and make that connection. But for me, somehow it just works. But then when it doesn't, I really don't know what to do. And that's when you kind of just pursue the grade and try to finish this nightmare almost that you're stuck in. And a lot of the times it's because things aren't going your way, nor do you care enough. And it's really easy to give up when you have something that you really like. If you already define like, okay, I do this. This is easy for me. This is difficult. So I don't care about this. I'll just do the easy thing and just go on with it. And honestly, that's how I've been leading my life. I just go on with the easy thing. And somehow that's been like something I like. And I just continue on that path. But then when some difficulty comes, like, I don't want to deal with this. Rather than doing that, I think there definitely needs to be a lot of advice and work given and put into that area, as for sure, for students to self accommodate and also to be accommodated by others and their teachers.
Yeah, big time. Okay, let's put a pause on this segment. I think
Yep.
there's a lot more to cover, but I'm going to keep this rolling, and then we're going to actually do some manual recordings to get so that people know who you are, and we can ask a question about people's perceptions about us as we're going through school. So give me 1 second.
Cool. Yeah.
I realize I should also, I don't know if you noticed, but my shirt has turned a different color because of how hot my room is. Do you
Yeah.
see
Now
a
I see
few shades of green?
it.
2 shades of green, right? So That's cool that this is live, you know, YOLO. But I'm gonna go ahead and turn
It,
my
it, it
video
looks
off.
like it looks like one of those shirts where it's kind of like the army colors, where it's
Yeah,
like camouflage because it's green and black. So it works. I didn't notice it
commando.
was sweat until now.
It wasn't sweat 10 minutes ago, but now it is. So I'm just gonna disable my video for a second, and I'll unmute
Yeah,
myself, and then I'll be back in like 2 minutes, so you can just take a break.
yeah. All right. Hey,
Let's see how long this shirt lasts before it changes color.
it's darker, so hopefully it should last longer.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
hopefully, fingers crossed. Okay, I'm
All
gonna
right.
go ahead and do a countdown, Balaram, and then
Mm-hmm.
I'll basically say 3, 2, 1, and then I'll hit record on my laptop. So
Okay.
this is my iPad, and then I'll ask you the question, and the question is going to be, what's one assumption an educator has had about you that you wish they knew was not true? And I can answer that one first,
Uh-huh.
if you want, and then you can think
Yeah,
about your
I'll need
answer.
a little time. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, you can take as much time as you want. This is
Okay.
definitely not a job interview. This is
Yeah,
I just think it's a strong question.
it
It's a
is.
direct question to ask. And I would love to begin. You're the first one I'm formally asking this question while trying to capture it. And I'd love to begin to have these responses and provide a library of these responses.
That would
Um,
be pretty cool. Yeah.
right?
Wait,
Because
can you repeat the question again?
yeah, what's one assumption an educator has made about you that you wish they knew was not true,
It's
either
not true.
flawed or not true, right? So like
Mm-hmm.
one I could say is, it feels like sometimes because I'm Asian American, one of my teachers assume that I'm good at math or STEM stuff, but the reality is that's just not true. Or another one is, let's see, when I'm in class, when I'm nodding and shaking my head and smiling, and they ask, "Are there any questions?" and I don't say anything, it doesn't mean I actually don't have any questions. It usually means I've got about 20 questions and I just don't know which one to ask. Right. So those are two simple ones. And then when I was asking those questions during the breakout rooms during our event, the Science Learning
Mm-hmm.
Institute, there were some really raw responses. Really, really raw responses. Like
Mm-hmm.
one of the students, like her mom was diagnosed with ALS, and she was already like putting in super amount of time to do well in her STEM courses to be able to transfer in time.
Mm-hmm.
But then she had this huge, tragic, and traumatic um, weight on her shoulders because of the diagnosis. And then a few weeks later, I guess one of her chem teachers like basically told her that she should change her major and that she's not smart enough and that she shouldn't be doing any of this because she's a woman, and she's just like really, really, we've all had some variation of those words thrown at us. And it doesn't have to be educators, it could be our friends or peers, our parents. One of the things about parents and educators is because of the power differential, their words hold a lot more weight, you know,
Yeah.
way more weight. So those are just to give you some examples of responses
Hmm.
that are just fine. So whenever you're ready, I will go ahead and hit record, and then
All right.
but you feel like you have a good one?
I have one, but it's all like I know there's another one. I'm just trying to formulate it in words. Because like the one is like no questions equals full understanding, which is extremely hard. It was like there's like situations where like you don't get anything, so you don't even have enough knowledge to ask a right question.
That's a good one.
And um
That's a really good response, Balaram, because especially if we're to transition from the amazing blog posts that you're doing and your passion with CS. But the
mhm.
fact of the matter is still CS courses are just like that, right?
They're
Like,
very quick, yeah.
yeah. And
And yeah,
that's a good one. So we can talk through that one. So you can
we can do
start
that
that
first
off.
then. Yeah, sure. I'll
Okay. All right.
can do
Great.
one later if I find another one.
Okay, great. I'm gonna do 3, 2, 1. I'll hit record and I'll go straight into the question and then I'll give it to you. Okay.
All right.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. Balaram, what is one assumption an educator has made about you you wish they knew was not true?
I think one thing, especially that happens a lot in classes, is when a professor says something and after some time they ask for questions and it's gone over almost everyone's head. No one understands what's going on, and there's no questions, of course, because how do you ask a question when you don't? When you basically your question is, can you repeat everything? That's just it's a lot of pressure. It's just too much to ask in a class. And with that, professors just assume, and it's really like when you're an educator and when you're in that situation, it's really hard to judge what to is like. There's either like no one gets it or everyone gets it. It's completely there's two extremes, and most of the time it's easier for them just to be like, okay, no one get it, everyone gets it. It's fine. We'll just move on, and it works for them. And then after that, like unless you have some time in office hours or you have to read up on it or something, you have to do a lot of self work to get to a point where you can try to understand it and try to ask a good question. And I think that's a lot of and that's a very annoying impression that's there. I don't want to say it's wrong because I don't know if there's a solution even, so I can't say it's wrong, but it's a very annoying impression that exists in like a class setting with educators and students where no questions essentially equals that it's a perfect understanding. And that's a little tough one, yeah.
In almost every single one of my STEM courses and other courses, to be honest, if I can understand for a consecutive 5 minutes of lecture, I am on like the clouds, right? Like I'd be like really lucky to be able to do that. Um, so then the reality is there's a lot of gaps of understanding for me and the material being presented, which means the solution that I found that's been most valuable is to track those questions as they arise during lecture. So write them down or type them out,
Yes.
refine them at the end of class or during break, and really seek out help. You mentioned office hours, you mentioned like just searching, right?
Hmm.
We're living in an abundance of information, and that's not always been the case, but there's some cost to that because Google, to be honest, doesn't really care if we learn CS. So when we search our question, it's not always going to be the best response in the first couple hits.
Right, right.
um, Tutoring, finding like just help seeking practices, like take that part seriously, right? But yes, for me, tracking those questions as lecture is happening, so I don't lose where those gaps are. If I lose where those gaps are and just do the assignment, it's really overwhelming, right?
It is, yes. That's also something I actually started this year with upper division classes. It's much harder and understanding is much more important. I just here, I have my notebook. This one is just for questions. It's just like a list of questions for each single person I talk to. Like if it's an office hour, I will like prepare the whole week. I'll have a bunch of questions. I'll like prioritize which one I want to ask first according to how much time I get with the professor. And then I just go off. And then that's really, really helped me in getting to this point. And another thing regarding this idea of questions is like, this is impression, of course, like the dumb question. And the dumb question is like either it's something that doesn't matter, or it's just like it's not a question, it's just asking for a repetition, or it's just asking for a re-explanation. And at least when, because one situation I was in a grad course in an undergrad. And in that situation, it's, I don't know, for me at least, I feel like I can't act like I don't know. I'm like slowing down the class. You know what I mean? Like just because I'm not at their level, I don't want to be like annoying everyone. Like everyone knows the answer, I'm the one that's asking. And that was really scary. Like to like think, what question should I ask right now? What should I not? And at that point, like of course, like my head, I could not deal with asking like a re-explanation. So sometimes a grad student would ask for a re-explanation. I'm like, oh, okay, that gave me a little confidence. Like I can ask this and it's fine. But yeah, those like these kind of situations, it's a little hard to figure out. And I think a good way to do it is like spend a separate time for that, and to actually spend time understanding what your question is before, like of course the re-explanation, the professor doesn't know what to say. Like if he's going to say the same words, how is it going to go back in your head perfectly? It's not going to penetrate either. So I don't know, somehow finding that gap and understanding what that gap is extremely important. Yeah.
Many professors, managers, parents, they have what we might call expert blind spot. They're so,
Yes.
they've done something for so long, for such a long time, they forgot what it felt like to be in our shoes, right? And that's not totally on them. Um, I am. So there's this book called A More Beautiful Question, and I think we should both write a blog post on both of our blogs in not necessarily the nuances from this book, because you probably don't have the book, but just like what it means to ask good questions in class, right? Especially with online learning now, like it'd be so cool to provide an anonymous chat feature where not only questions could be asked, but there's some type of promise that a tutor, an embedded tutor, or TA, or someone at the success centers will respond to those questions in a way that is actually provided to everyone in that class, right? Because
There's
the
actually
longer,
something like that in one of my classes right now, which I really love. It's all the questions, and they have a Q&A session that without a time limit. And they go over every single question from that lecture. And it's been amazing to have, and all the students have benefited from that. And like I think, yeah, this initiatives like that, it's nice. Especially with the online setting, it's easier because you can, it doesn't take, you're not interrupting the class by asking a question anymore. You can just post it in the chat.
yeah.
So yeah.
I'm gonna end the local recording really quickly for this clip.
All right.
Great, awesome. We could do one. We can maybe do one or two more if you want.
Another thing I thought about during this conversation was expecting you to know stuff from other classes, expecting to know build-up material. And I think Anderson did a great job at taking that away. I like that stuck with me when he's like, I'm like, okay, wait, really? I didn't think about this before. And then now in upper div, when you transfer especially, there's like different things that you're supposed to know. Because in UCSC, and maybe you face this too, in UCSC, everything is C. Like everything is coded in C, but we don't do that here. We do Java and C++. So you go in and you don't know C, and you're expected to know C, and you kind of like, what do I do? And these kinds of like, I don't know, these expectations that are built up from previous, like you've done this class, you should know this, you should know that. But then every class is also different, because another thing that happened with one of my professors was like, yeah, one professor, he doesn't do a lot. He spends time on a few topics and he's very slow through each one. He drags through them and basically cements it in your head, but it's very few, and it doesn't like comprise everything. And another professor who goes through everything but doesn't spend a lot of time making sure you understand it. He'll go deep into it, but he won't make sure that everyone is on board. And it's kind of like you figure it out, and you'll be tested on shallowness, but you'll get to know both the deep and the shallow. And like when you take a class for the second person, he expects you to know all the other algorithms when you only learn like two. You're supposed to learn this, you're supposed to learn that, but you didn't learn it. And then I think that I just like expectations from previous classes. I think that's something that I faced. I think a lot of people would face that too. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, big time. Me too. Yes. Let's do a clip on that.
Cool.
Let's try to focus our response within 2 minutes. So I love
Oh
the,
yes, yeah,
please bring up Anderson. What this is actually really getting at, right, is the misconception of prerequisite knowledge,
yes. Prerequisite. That's a good word. That's a good term
right?
for it.
So maybe that'll be actually my question statement. It could be, Balaram, now that you've transferred from Foothill College to UC Santa Cruz, how have you suffered from prerequisite knowledge? How have you, what's your experience with the ideas around prerequisite knowledge? Is that good?
That sounds good. Yeah.
Okay, good. And do your best, no pressure, but do your best to keep your
I'll
response
keep
in
it
2 minutes.
concise. Yeah.
Because we know
Sure.
how, we know what happens when videos are too long. Students, as you told, over the last year I've made like close to 50 videos, right? So okay,
Are you,
all right,
are they all public? Because
nope,
whenever you sent them to me, they were always unlisted or something,
yeah,
right?
they're most of them are unlisted because i'm
Okay.
i'm still i'm still training, right? As
Right.
you're noticing, this YouTube live thing is for sure public. But, okay, great. I'll do 3 2 1 and I'll ask you the question. Okay,
Cool.
my shirt is definitely in a different shade of blue, but it's not as bad as that green. So
Yeah, for
it
sure.
feels like 200 degrees in here. I don't know what's going on.
Do you have an AC? I don't have one, so I'm just sitting with the fan.
Yeah, I need a fan. I do have a fan, but I'm worried about the audio. So that's
Oh,
why.
okay.
Anything
Can you hear my fan? I don't know.
nope, I can't hear yours at
Okay,
all.
that's great.
So anything for our viewers, right? Okay. All right. 3 2 1. Balaram, now that you have transferred from Foothill College to UC Santa Cruz with a focus on math and computer science, how has your understanding of prerequisite knowledge changed?
Um, Something that's happened at least during transferring, especially the lower division that you take in football, like they match, of course, on paper, but then in real life, every college has its own ways of doing things. And personally, for me, one example would be like we had to learn C, the coding language C, for UCSC when I never knew that. I only did Java, and that was enough to transfer apparently, but C was required for the course, and I had to basically speed learn it in 2 weeks. And I wasn't they didn't inform it beforehand, like you might need to learn C if you don't know it, etc. So that's like these kind of ideas of just like you have to know this, you have to know that, and because you took this class, you should know that. And that's been it's an assumption that isn't great to have, and um, that isn't productive in any way, and it doesn't help. It only further stresses out a student, I would assume. And Anderson, one way he addressed it, I didn't know that it was a problem until after he addressed it. And he's like, I'm not going to do that with you guys. I'm going to make sure you learn. I'm going to make sure you guys start up more ground up and you kind of pick up from there, and I'll teach you that. I'll make those connections for you. You don't have to do that yourself. And I took it for granted. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. But now I'm like, I really wish I had that all the time. So that's my take on prerequisite knowledge.
Me too. Me too. Setting the foundation is so important. And so much of that foundation is our ability to
Mhm.
learn, our curiosity to learn that subject, study skills, and habits of
Yes,
learning, right? And
right.
that's exactly how his project Conquering College was birthed, because we hide that from students,
Yeah,
right?
we do. And also we don't acknowledge the diversity in teaching and different teaching methods and different of what they're teaching as well. Like a course may have a subject and you have the SLOs, right? But that's like if you only focus on SLOs, you'll be done in 2 weeks. So everyone has their own way of going through it, and then there's expectations from each class. Like this is how I expected you learned from this class when maybe you learn differently. So that's a tough one.
All right, more to come. Thanks, Bella.
All right.
Okay, I realized one we should really do is our beautiful history together, Balaram. I think our very first time um, I met you was in the STEM Center, I believe. I don't think we were classmates yet. I think, oh, you're in the STEM Center, you were working.
I think no, I think we were. What it was Calc 1A with you remember Torian?
Oh, I do remember Torian, yeah.
Yeah, so
Who
in
was that?
Calc 1A, so we had Leander. So us three were a group. You know how we had with Brian Stanley? We had those group homeworks, etc. So
Mm-hmm.
we were a group, and he didn't want he couldn't do the last or one of the homeworks, and then you wanted, and your team kind of, I don't know if this is the right class, but something happened with your group and they weren't working together, and then you just asked us if you want to join, if you could join, and we're like, yeah, cool. We don't have Leander anyway, and then that's how I first met you. I don't know if that's correct. Do you remember that?
Um, I definitely do remember Tori, and I remember being in that class with you. Yes, but
Yeah,
I thought maybe it was we
maybe we
also
met earlier. I don't know.
missed into there. But I think we
Maybe.
should share that history because it shows just how
Sure.
diverse. Um, like no, it actually shows that the notion of traditional college students no longer exist. Right. I worked for what 6 years after high school before starting at Foothill.
Hmm.
You were 11 when you started Foothill?
I started when I was 11. Yeah.
Yeah, so like I think we should just highlight that somehow in 2 minutes, right? So I think the topic of conversation here is Balaram, please use your story to help us understand that traditional students don't exist, which also means I don't know. In terms of learning, like it's so important to understand how learning works, right? Because of our
Right.
diversity and
And there's
backgrounds.
different times for it as well. Everyone has their own time.
Hmm. Okay, great. But let's just capture that. So
All right, cool.
we'll do. We'll basically talk about our beginnings of Foothill, and maybe some key things we learned at Foothill, depending on how long it goes.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right. 3, 2, 1. In this video, we're going to talk about how the idea of traditional students should be just dispelled from the vocabulary because, Balam, what was your situation when you first started at Foothill?
When I first started, I started when I was 11. So that's already, I just taken away that traditional student thing. It is gone. And I started at 11 and I then transferred as most students do. But it was completely different. And when I came in, I was expecting, oh, I'll see like 18-year-olds probably everywhere. And then I saw everyone. There was like a whole range of people and it wasn't just age, it was like different backgrounds altogether. And I think you also had a very special and unique background coming into community college.
Nice segue. I worked for about 6 years after graduating Henry M. Gunn High School, where I completely didn't find my identity at all through academics because I never was taught to value it, and I was a little bit lazy as a student. But yes, the sooner students can understand that the diversity of different student narratives and stories is something that we can leverage to find our own is massively empowering, because not only are you self-educating yourself on other people's culture, you become more curious about your own history and culture. And when you do that, you can define values such as justice, peace, liberty, wealth in ways that you otherwise wouldn't be able to if you just watched Hollywood movies praise Lamborghinis and mansions and things like that, right? So, in
Right.
fact, every single one of us, we are a movie. Like we're literally making our movie. And to just invest a little bit of time, like how we're doing here, in having
Hmm.
genuine, meaningful conversations with our peers, acts as such a important force when things get hard in our academic journey.
Yes, that definitely. I think that concept of just knowing that there's diversity and there's a lot of it, and there's more than just what face value has on on the college experience, on the traditional college life, or the traditional student, as we were saying. So there's definitely more to it, and I guess we're great examples of this, and there's so many more, for sure. Yeah.
And when I met Balaram, he was about like, I think he might have been like this tall, if that. And then
I grew a foot in fiddle, or like more than a foot. It was
before
like,
you transferred, you were like this tall. I was like, is that Balaram? That's insane, right? Absolutely
yep,
insane. My door just magically opened. I'm not sure why.
that's scary.
Yeah. Okay, great. Let's end this recording.
All right.
Paul, that was good. I don't know if you want to choose one, we can do one more short clip. The whole idea is I'll upload these, and then you'll have access to this stuff, right? For sure, the live one is already uploaded and it'll be there. But
Yeah.
maybe if you want to take a minute to brainstorm of a question that you think would be valuable for us to capture our responses to, and our dialogue with, you can take a minute and think if you want.
Yeah, sure. Like I'm brainstorming out loud. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
So you've probably been like in the search of like internships and all, right? For summer in general, for work. But for me personally, I didn't go down that path. So like that would be a cool question. I'm just saying in general, because there's a lot of especially for transfers, there isn't a lot. What I noticed, and you probably noticed this too, right? Because you kind of get trained with all this knowledge in your freshman years at university. Because there's a lot of like I'm in a club right now, and we're preparing workshops for freshmen to get into internships and to educate them so that they get into something when they're in their sophomore year or something. When you transfer as a junior, people apply for internships for the junior summer when you're transferring, basically your summer before transferring. And that kind of like that lag is detrimental, and it's much more difficult, I think. That's one question. I don't think I'm a good person to answer. I think maybe you would, or someone else you might know, because I didn't pursue it as much. I kind of like didn't care too much. Like it was too difficult. I didn't go for it. It wasn't my plan anyway. But something I could talk about is just getting into research. That's a little, I don't know. Maybe it's not relevant to your audience, but it's just another thing.
Relevant.
Like
Yes.
these kind of like research, internship, etc. These kind of things which are not really talked about to transfer students. It's more or less you got to figure it out.
Okay, great. Definitely relevant.
There's
so
that. Another, yeah.
Yes, definitely relevant, Balaram.
So that's one idea, yeah.
We can do that. Let's do that. So look, I can lead with the internship one, and then you can lead with like, I might ask you like, how do you define research, right? And if you can try to encapsulate that in 2 minutes, boom, perfect. That'd be a great video, because so many students don't know what research is, right? I mean, research is essentially learning, right? What is research besides learning deeply?
It really is. It's discovering the unknown.
Yeah. And how cool would it be for students to enter, or at least be invited to have that mindset in their courses, right? Not necessarily do research projects, but in the actual stuff that's delivered in lecture. You know, that's a so I'll ask you that one, and then when you finish your like 1 to 2 minute response, you can say, Henry, what is your experience with internships? And then I'll
I think instead of going for how to do it, we'll just talk about the entity itself. I think that's a good idea too.
Okay, great. Yeah. All right, so just to refresh real quick, I'll literally ask, Balaram, how do you define research now that you've created your own blog and are really cultivating this passion about CS? How do you define research?
Yeah, that sounds good. And I guess I can talk about research, what it is, and the mindset as well, right?
Yes, and the process. Talk about the process, right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. 3, 2, 1. Balaram, now that you are cultivating some deeply rooted passion of understanding how math and computer science matter in this world, how do you define research?
Well, the way I would define research, I think, is that you're really discovering something, because it's not like it's something new. You're not making something up. You're discovering something by some set of foundation, some foundational knowledge. You're trying to define something. You're trying to conclude something that hasn't been concluded before. So it's very interesting, and it's very alone. It's very lonely. There's no one there to help you. There's only it's a handful group of people who can possibly talk to you about it. So it's a lonely experience, but it's also a very satisfying experience in general. And that's what research is. Like the whole mindset is you want to solve a problem, and you're bent on solving this problem. And you start off with like, oh, I hypothesize this, and then you try to do that, and that doesn't work. Maybe you find something else. And that's the whole process behind it. But I think the mindset behind it all is just this real drive to figure something out, to to just solve it and to have that confidence that you can solve it. And that's something that is something really important that should be developed, I think. So within students, like just have that confidence that you can solve a problem, like not just like, oh, I don't have enough knowledge to do this, I don't know how to do this. Rather than that, you can just like just having this confidence, this motivation that I can solve it and I will solve it in some way or other or the other. And just developing that mindset in class through homework, for example, or tests, that can easily transfer to a research atmosphere where you can completely go into the unknown, where there is no solutions, there's no solution sheet, there's nothing. You're the solution. You got to figure out what's right and wrong. So it's a very different experience than learning in class. But it also, you can use the same ideas in both places.
Thank you
And
for that.
Henry, do you want to talk about internships, which is a little more different from research because it's more applied in a sense?
Yeah, so I've had two tech internships, one at a self-driving car company, one at motion laser sensor companies. In both of those experiences, they were quite painful because there's very, very minimal guidance on what a real roadmap is to get onboarded. So I know some internships have great training programs and mentorship, but mine was not the case, which is a nice reminder for students just how important it is to focus on the process of learning, just like the process of research. Balaram expressed some pain that so much of it is quite lonely, right? And I was certainly feeling that in my internship. I'm not claiming all internships are like this, but in case your internship experience is like this, I hope when you enter that experience, you have some type of consciousness of study skills, learning habits, effective studying techniques, which include help-seeking practices and include like meaningful questioning so that you can get to the more refined answers that you need to get to. So yes, it goes hand in hand. Internship hunt, finding research projects, like try to see if you can turn every single class into a research opportunity by not only doing what you need to do to survive that class,
Mm-hmm.
but also seeing like, if I were to look back on this material 1 year from now, what did I genuinely learn? Right? Hopefully there's one thing you genuinely learned. And what did I actually develop? Like, how did I set myself up for success in the future by learning meaningfully in my courses, right? That would
Right.
have better prepared me for my internship. And fortunately, Anderson, that's what Anderson's teaching style is, right? Or your
Mm-hmm.
one of your teachers' foundations. Set that foundation. Otherwise, we're just going to be Googling all day, right?
Right. And one thing that's really key in that is that having a plan or process for learning gives you the confidence that you can learn, that you can get there at some point. And that's also extremely important to get through that kind of lonely atmosphere as you were talking about, and as I was also talking about. So that's also another thing why the process and just having a plan is so important in this setting.
That's what pros do. Like, how do you think professional chefs cook an amazing meal? They don't go to the mall 25 times to buy different ingredients. They actually
Yeah.
create a plan, like reasonable steps, and they all have a reason, right? Like each one
Yeah.
of the steps has a reason. And
Yeah.
that's what really strong and advanced learners do in courses, but those are usually like the 1% in my courses. Usually we're just in survival mode. So the sooner we can understand, hey, it's all about the process, the sooner we can begin developing those skills. Okay, end this clip.
That's good. Yeah.
That was a good one. Great idea.
Yeah, sorry,
Um,
I just thought about that in between. I'm like, I think I should add this. You can cut it out if you don't want it.
no, I like it. No, I definitely like it. The Zoom thing is cool because it basically cuts the clips like that.
Right.
I've spent a good amount of time editing videos, and I just at this stage of my academic life, I don't have that time, right? But it's still important to capture these ideas because one day I will have time to edit the ideas, and then it'll be
Yeah.
something that we
Sure.
can
Yeah.
put together. And you know it's really cool is I'm quite confident Jeff is going to be the first one that's going to watch this video, so it's going to be a nice little
That's
like
gonna be exciting. Yeah.
yeah, you should totally reach out to him. Maybe you want to
I'll reach.
email
I think
him.
I should. Yes. I think
If
I'm
he
because.
sees your blog, he's gonna really smile because I've literally 4 months ago I had a conversation with him about blogs, and ever since then, bi-weekly we talk about how can we leverage the idea of becoming a generator for students, right? Becoming public, working with our garage door open in a sense, instead of like having all of our information in our own Google Docs or on
Yeah.
in our binders, right? Like when we can bring about transparency of what these topics mean, and we can show the process behind it. So that's one thing you might consider, right, Balaram? Since it's your own blog, you might consider within those posts or within the future posts, really being transparent of how long it took and the steps that you took to learn that stuff.
That's a good
Right.
idea to add that as well, that element, not just
Yeah,
the
'cause-
presentation.
Yeah, the presentation is important, right? It's really good for recruiters and really good for students who get that stuff. It's not so good for students who don't get it yet, right?
Right.
So yes, I push you on doing. I urge you on doing that because if you're going to be a
That's a
researcher,
good idea.
you're going to have to teach too, right? And then you'll remember, holy cow, that's what my schedule looked like. That's what my term calendar looked like. That's what I
Yeah.
did with my lecture notes. That's how I seeked help. That's how I prepared for an assessment. You'll remember all those things in a much
Have a
more
record. Yeah,
robust way.
definitely. That's a really good idea. I'm going to consider that for sure.
And I also have.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say I was going to share with you a blog that Jeff shared with me. And it was actually, Jeff shared with me this blog because 4 months ago, I was like, dude, we should totally get students to blog about their stuff, or at least turn one project in each of his classes or one learning objective into a blog piece, right? So remind me, I'll hopefully remember, because at the end of the call, I'll just send it to you. But this dude, his blog is legit, but it doesn't have the how, right? He just goes into what is it that I'm blogging about? Why is it cool? And let me show you how. Let me show you the nuances of it, right? But you'll see. Go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted.
That'd be cool. Yeah. Now I was just asking, like, maybe I could just write a post about this. Just have the links for our video, all the videos that you probably, whenever you make them, you send them over. That's cool with you. I don't know.
But definitely cool with me. Definitely cool with me. Well, one of these days you'll have to catch up with Jeff, and maybe I can pull you in one of the calls because.
That's a good. Yeah. I'll. How do you think? What's the best way to reach him? It's not email, right? I remember that.
I'll make sure in my next meeting with him, I'll bring this conversation up.
Okay.
And
cool.
then I think for your case, yes, email actually. Email, say like I asked you to be a panelist at the Science Learning Institute, and we had this conversation, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And then, yeah, I think that would just be a good start from there.
That'd be cool. Yeah. Like also his research in general, he does stuff in linear algebra, and I'm starting to go in that direction. So it'd be cool to talk about that as well.
He has a few projects in mind, I'm sure, lined up.
Oh, that's great.
In the queue for that stuff, because you know how he is, right? He wants to transform the way we teach linear algebra.
That would be very interesting to see. Yes.
Yeah. So email
linear
him.
algebra is a gruesome learning experience.
Yeah. Okay, I think this is good for today's meeting. It's been an hour.
Yeah, this is nice.
This is so cool that we did. This is my very first one that hasn't been with my immediate work partners, and very first one where you've answered that first question, right? The assumptions question.
It's cool.
And also very first one where I lost about 10 pounds of sweat in one Zoom session just because I don't want to turn on. Like, you probably see the fan, right? Here's the fan, the huge fan
right behind you.
But all for the sake of audio quality for our viewers, I decided to not turn that on. Okay.
All right.
Let's end. I'm definitely gonna bring this conversation up with Jeff.
Cool.
You can email him too, and then I'll send you that dude's blog.
Yeah, that would be really nice. And thanks for catching up. This is really fun. I liked it.
Yeah, make sure you get your gift card through Sophia somehow, some way.
I fill out the survey. Is that enough?
Right. Yeah, that's definitely enough.
Okay.
But I'm hoping, because we designed this day to be really student-centered, you were able to hear some things from students that far exceeds the value of the gift card that you're about to receive, right?
Definitely. Yeah, I did not go for the gift card. I wanted to have fun because I've been doing.
Yeah, I wanted to just catch up with you. I was in case you didn't want to catch up with me, I was like, dude, you can get a gift card. You can get a gift card for this.
Yeah, I just wanted to have fun with that because I've been in annoying meetings all quarantine. So this is really nice to do.
Awesome.
And it was fun listening to
I'm so glad that you were able to make it and that we're reconnected after a year, right?
Yeah, long time. Also, you were mentioning, I don't know if you have to run, but you were talking about in like few months ago, I think, about the whole project that you're doing, of course, and you were saying that I could help out in some way. I forgot exactly what you were saying.
Yeah.
You
Okay. So
want?
the one really tangible way you can help out is
Hmm.
actually feature, like, write that post, right? Write the post on what you think about this conversation, about assumptions, about the processes of learning, about research. Write a blog post about it, and then I can feature your blog posts. That's the best way, because it's
It's a
totally
good
a
idea.
win-win, right? It's but
Hmm.
the project that I was doing, the stages that I'm on now, through Jeff's guidance, is literally deeply reading some books on learning. But the one that I chose is actually on trauma. So there's this book. I can send you a summary of this book. I read a few summaries of this book. The Body Keeps the
Uh huh.
Score. It's all about trauma, and it's, you probably heard me mention a little bit about it during today's meeting, but we all have some type of math and science phobia, right? We all have some trauma related to these courses that we're taking.
Yes.
And if we don't know how to heal and assess and dialogue about this trauma, it's not going to be very healthy for us in the long term, right? So,
Hmm.
um, yes, the best way to do it is just blog about what your thoughts on learning is, research,
Yeah,
community.
it's a good idea. I'll when I if I start on that, maybe it'll be done by September in that zone. Right
Okay, yeah,
now,
no rush, no
yeah.
rush. I know blogging is hard, and I'm happy to be your editor. My
Oh wow,
I can edit.
I'm just happy that someone read it.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen
um,
normally.
let's both help each other blog, right?
Yeah,
I,
definitely.
I understand the hesitation of blogging because there's so much junk out there in the world, but for the immediate circles of influence that we have, we can really help some people, I think, when we talk
Sure,
about
yeah,
it.
definitely. We could totally like for this one. Maybe we could like even collaborate on something. Like we can write half half, or your I can write. We can add your parts to it as well.
Hmm.
Or since you're working the video format, I can link your stuff and embed it, which would be pretty
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. Let's think about that. I think the first stage. I think let's both have um, written stuff about our ideas of learning, research, this experience with
Hmm.
being a panelist, right? I've been a
Yeah.
panelist for over probably 20 panels over the last 3 years, but
Wow.
this one, the reason why it was designed like this is this one's about being student centered. And when you're student centered, the irony is we actually get to learn as panelists, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Not just from the immediate panelists, but from the tremendous wealth that these students have.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. All the students were really, really very interesting in a sense, and many of them were from high school, I believe. At least one breakout room, everyone was just from high school.
Mm,
So a lot of, and then there were some who were like 2 years in or something, or were coming back to school. So it was really cool to see all the diversity.
mhm. Yeah. Diversity, sadly, is a controversial topic between
It
political
is.
parties.
I think what's important is just like again just breaking the stereotype. It's not like quota, or it's not like a quota system where you have like I need to have this many people who are diverse in my life or something like that. It's just like it's more like an acceptance that diversity exists, but at the same time that doesn't mean like uniformity is like bad. I think it's just like then again, indifference is a bad thing. So you don't. So it's a tough place to be in.
Yeah,
It's not it's not being indifferent to uniformity and diversity, but I don't know.
we might have to do some research and write our own book on diversity, right? That's a huge topic.
Right? Yeah.
Uh, but
Actually, I actually wanted to show you something kind of funny because you're. So this is what happened with my blogging. I have like 34 drafts of just things I want to write,
wow.
but I haven't done anything. It's like so I want to write about this topic, but I haven't like had the chance to work on it. So I'll add these stuff too, and then I just kind of like whenever I have time, I just like go down this. I'm like, what do I want to write? What do I want to write about?
You know what's funny, Balaram, is I have an exact, just about the same, or roughly the same number of blog posts that I want to write, but none of them are STEM related. It's all like learning, motivation, productivity focused.
Yeah, that's your passion, so of course you're gonna write about them. That would be the coolest thing to hear about from you, because you'd be able to
Yeah,
give the proper insight on that.
yeah. After I do my research, right? Otherwise, I'll
Mhm.
just.
Of
Have you
course,
heard that?
yes,
Have you heard the idea of same wine, just a different bottle?
yes. Old wine in a new bottle, I think, right?
Yeah, yeah. Like old or same, right? Like you literally
Yeah.
just repackage it and then you're like shooting the crap and it's just the same thing.
Something new, yes.
Yeah, so that's why research and learning is important, because for you to generate new things, you have to meditate on some things for a while.
Yeah, you have to have your own understanding. You have to like you're not because when you don't have your I think your inner under like until you can explain it without reading off a book, that's when you know you've actually learned it. And that's what blogging helps out with because now you have to do that. Like what's the point of blogging if you're going to write the book? There's no point.
That's the
like
power of writing.
that is, yes.
That's
I
the
actually
power.
hated writing my entire life. I don't know. I just got into it now.
Same. I've never even finished an entire book until recently. On that book, How Learning Works, I never even finished an entire book. And that's not
Wow.
all on my English professors and teachers, right? That's mainly because I just really didn't enjoy English.
Yeah. Yeah.
or saw the value in it. But now it's like, dude, it literally is a sharpening tool of your mind, right?
Yeah. Writing is special. Yeah.
I'm glad
That
this
is,
entire thing is recorded because we've actually covered a lot of things that aren't in my local recordings, right?
yeah. So you like, if you want a clip, you can just come back.
Yeah, I'll come back to it. Okay, Balaram, I have to get ready
All
for
right.
4:30.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. All right.
So
I'll
I should
talk to you
probably
later.
cool down so I don't look like I'm dying in this one. Otherwise, people might be a little bit concerned. Um, but this was really nice, dude.
This is really nice. Yeah.
We should do this again within a month or so.
Yeah. September,
Maybe,
I'm free the entire month. So you can hit me up
yeah.
anytime.
What are you doing online classes though?
I'm doing online classes, but since it's quarter system, my school starts in October 1st. And my summer school just ends in 2 weeks. So September is my
Oh,
free month.
I see. Oh, wow, you're busy in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, next 2 weeks it's been going on for the last 6 weeks. So it's like the same thing again. But yeah,
Okay.
that is my schedule. Yeah.
Okay. Well, after you finish your finals, message me. We might
Yeah,
aim to write an outline of our blog posts, right?
that's a good idea. I'll
Outlining
think about
is
it. Yeah.
um,
Outlining is the easiest part. I love it.
yeah, the science behind motivation is to have a series of small wins, and outlining is a really nice checkbox. So you'd be like, check, I
hmm
finished that at least. Because
Outlining, planning, that's another one.
right now, so many of my blog posts are just titles, right? I don't even want to look at them because, so
The titling is so fun. Yeah. Yeah. All right. I'll talk to you later then. We'll catch up.
okay, all right, Bowman. That's
All
so
right.
cool that Jeff is gonna
Yeah.
say this. All right, man.
This was fun. Yeah. Bye.
See you next time.
Yep.